In Baumier, there is no boss. I am not the CEO of the organization. There is no CEO. We are a team. I am part of the team. I am the founder of the company. I am actually the ignition, the spikes of the company. And my responsibility is to make sure that Baumier ecosystem is growing in the culture that we put together. At some point, it's every single day challenge to serve Baumier and not our ego.
You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in.
All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Benjamin du Haÿs, the founder over at Baumier. Benjamin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pat. Very glad to be here, and thanks for this opportunity to talk about Baumier. It's always good.
Absolutely. We're so excited to have you on today. You have a very cool entrepreneurial journey. So before we get into Baumier, can you give us a little bit of background? How did you get to here? How did you get to starting Baumier?
Yeah, thank you for asking this question. If I may, I used to introduce myself by sharing my 3 life pillars. It's always interesting to understand where people are coming from. And for me, first of all, I am a proud and happy husband. With my wife, we moved from France to Canada back in 2007. And we have 3 girls, Leonie, 17 years old, Margot, 14 years old, and Apolline, 9 years old. It's a house full of girls, and we hear Taylor Swift all the way in the house, and so it's always great to see how kids can bring a different energy at home. So I'm really grateful for that. My second pillar is that I am a lifelong athlete. I've been rowing for 20 years. I was very close to the Olympic Games in 2000 and 2004 with the French rowing team, and I had a crazy dream to try to participate to the Beijing 2022 Olympic Games in cross-country skiing. Now that I am in another country, and all of that to say that training is part of my every single day journey, and I believe in prepared for what a life is going to throw at you by being trained, physically trained and mentally prepared. This is my recipe. And my third pillar is that I am an entrepreneur. I co-found a company called MobiWave back at the birth of Margot, my second daughter. So we used to say that Margot has a twin, and MobiWave is a twin. And yeah, we sold a twin, which is pretty weird if you go into that route, to Apple. And actually, MobiWave is at the origin of Tap2, the service by Apple Pay that is rolled out all around the world. It's a crazy and very interesting entrepreneur journey for 10 years. And I learned about the power of humans into this 10-year journey. And with Baumier, it's the second version of my entrepreneur journey. And I want to realize more. I want to empower and give more space for the true human being, the true interesting thing that we can discover with individuals, and with letting people be themselves, really being themselves. So this is the first pillar of Baumier. And in this process of, in my entrepreneurial journey, I realized how, I would say, how we as a humanity, we challenge the environment and the earth. And I realized in the last few years that it is very, very complex. And I want to have an impact. I want to try to make something better for my kids. I want to try to move the needle a little bit. And I have 2 options to do that. Actually, if either is to run for the US presidents, which is probably too challenging for me, or I'm going to say I can drive some meaningful impact with a new company. And I know that as a founder, as a CEO, you can have an impact on the community. So this is where Baumier is coming from, like environmental first and people first. And this is where everything started. And this is our big why at Baumier. And we realized that by the fact that I am true passionate by cycling, I've been cycling my entire life. I realized that, okay, it's great and it's very coherent to manufacture a bike and to make sure that this bike is respecting environment and people. So this is how we started Baumier, actually, back a few years ago.
I love it. And I'm really excited to pick your brain in a couple minutes on the VC route that you took with MobiWave. I know with Baumier, the goal was start an organization with a very different structure, and you ended up really building it off of like the principles of a Teal organization. Can you start out giving us an overview, for those who have never heard of it, like myself prior to having met you, what is a Teal organization?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. Actually, it is coming from a book written by Frédéric Laloux called Reinventing Organizations. And Frédéric Laloux has studied probably for many, many years the last 5,000 years of human organizations. And that's very interesting to look on how we as a humanity, we migrate from stage to stage to arrive where we are today by having different steps of how we get organized as a community, as a group. And so it is starting from the small groups of sapiens in in the regions, about 20, 25, 50 peoples, and with a lot of authority from the chief of the group, and with a lot of threats around the youngest, and say, you know what, I am the chief here. Either you die or you leave, and those were the structure at this time, few thousand years ago. And then we move on to religions, governments, institutions, where we had as a humanity the needs to align millions of individuals to make sure that, okay, we walk all in the same way and we believe into the same belief, and on and on. And but we know that now we know the limits of this system. And a few decades ago, a few hundred years ago, probably now, there is this Orange organization, which is the corporation that we know today, driven by performance, individual success, uh, you know, innovation. Sky is the limit. Like there is no constraints. And we know now that we know that the limits of the system too. And just before the last system, we migrate from the orange organizations to the green organization, which are the organization driven by culture, driven by value, driven by consensus, and trying to make everybody happy. And again, we know the limit of this system because this system is gluing the company. You cannot move if you have to find a consensus in a company, because at some point, if there is just one person say no, then everybody is stuck. So there is limitation here. And the last Teal organization inspired by the tropical forest and the nature, actually. And it is very interesting to say that we as a humanity, we invented organizations and a way to organize ourselves without looking at how nature is getting organized. And a tropical forest, for the example, is a very complex environment, extremely complex environment. Nobody is controlling it. There is no CEO, there is no boss, there is no, the big trees don't order anything on, so this is where my English language might be a little bit challenging, on the bugs, or on I don't have the terms in English, but on the roots, or on the sun, or anything, So there is no hierarchy here. There is no structure. It is purely organic. Every element is living their best life, if we can say. And so why we as a human, we don't get inspired by that. So it's really about that. Teal organization is starting to look what the nature is showing us and how can we get inspired by that. So it's really starting by that. And so finding this book, Reinventing Organization, has been really structural for me, because it is really explaining how companies are structured. And it gives us a lot of examples of companies already living Teal organization structure and governance, and on and on. So, and it's really about three principles. It is about self-management, means that again, the tree doesn't decide on the bugs what has to be done, So everybody is deciding what needs to be done, but everybody serve the true way of life of the organization. So everything is dedicated to make sure that the organization, or in the case of the forest is growing. The kind of freedom belief, but behind the freedom, you have an extremely important responsibility. It means that it's a freedom, yes, but dedicated to the wealth and the well-being of this forest ecosystem or company, in the case of the Teal organization in our corporate world, in our company world. So it's really about, yes, I can do whatever I want, but I have to do it to serve the root cause, or the big why of the company, because this big why is going to help the company or the ecosystem to live, to grow, and on and on. So it's really putting myself with all my freedom to the service of this organization. And so this is why it has to be like strongly wired into you to say, okay, I strongly believe into this why, into the the journey, into what we try to achieve together, into the product, into a lot of things, so I can dedicate myself to serve these goals.
Benjamin, that was amazing. Yeah, I'm so curious to ask you a bunch of follow-up questions, and I hope you don't mind. I'm going to play a little bit of
Please,
devil's advocate from time to time, because
please.
this is fascinating. And for context listeners, I was looking into this a little bit beforehand. Great example of a business that is a Teal organization is actually Patagonia, which I would say probably $1 billion brand. I feel pretty safe assuming they're $1 billion
Yeah,
brand. So
yeah.
some huge organizations that have managed to build a really successful business off of these principles. One of my first assumptions with a Teal organization is that it requires a very certain type of person to be employed there in order for it to work. I could see a lot of opportunity for maybe someone who does need a little bit more handholding, maybe not to work out there. But I'm curious, what's your take on that?
The principle and what we try to live is we believe into the fact that people joining the company are adults, responsible adults, and we believe that they can drive their own life. And so we believe into that. And we intentionally try to bring them in the company if they want. That's have to want to be part of it. And we try to honor the fact that they are adults, responsible, ready to make some mistakes, and ready to take some important decisions for the company. It means that they need to understand everything in the company. So this is why full transparency is a very important element. So each individual, as they are responsible adults, they can take responsible decisions. And so it's really leading like that. Of course, if individuals are here just to make money, just to serve themselves or their ego, then it doesn't fit. If they are here with their own agenda, doesn't fit. It's really how can we move ourselves and make ourselves available for the agenda of the company. The company in this sense is seen as a kind of a baby. And for Baumier, it's exactly the case. I mean, it's an 18-month-old son on the table here, and we need to take care of this little, it's hard to really say it's a baby, but of this little organization. And we need to hear and listen the energy of this own organization and kids and baby. It's like parenting, at some point. Like if you push yourself too much around your belief, your culture, your fear, then you give this to your son, right? It's the same for the company. We intentionally want to have some space where we listen to Baumier as an entity, as a source of energy. And if we listen to this carefully, then we know what it needs. And so in terms of people, in terms of individuals who join the team, it's really about that. Like how deep can you serve the company, the cause, the why Baumier is here, and how Baumier is going to grow. And it's every single moment challenge because, at some point, I am actually the owner of this topic in the company. And we, just as a quick introduction, we manufacture bikes and wheels and rims and so high-end bikes. One example is that in Baumier, there is no boss. I am not the CEO of the organization. There is no CEO. We are a team. I am part of the team. I am the founder of the company. I am actually the ignition, the spikes of the company. And my responsibility is to make sure that Baumier ecosystem is growing in the culture that we put together. At some point, it's every single day challenge to serve Baumier and not our ego, and to raise the flag and say, hey, you know what? Okay, we have this challenge. I hear you, my colleague. Like it's pretty your ego is talking, not what is good for Baumier, actually, what is good for the company. So it's really about trying to change the paradigm for the normal world that we know and we have been experiencing probably for you for the last 20 years, for myself, 20, 25 years. And to say, usually we serve ego, and here it's just putting the focus on the company Baumier and this small entity. What does it need? What does it need exactly?
Hey, listeners, if unpredictable revenue is keeping you up at night, this is for you. Most e-commerce brands don't have an advertising problem. They have a predictability problem. Pat from Intergrowth here. We help brands to build a profitable meta ad system for their business within 90 days. If you're interested in learning more, go to intergrowth.com/CGS to book a strategy session with our team. Once again, that's intergrowth.com/CGS. I could see how this would be such an inspiring atmosphere for a lot of individuals to work in. I'm curious how things work out if, let's say, there's a hire that comes on board that doesn't end up being the right fit, and maybe it's a scenario where the end verdict is we need to let this person go. The sense I get is there's not that management layer that's coming into play. It sounds like a very flat organization. What would that process look like if there's someone that's hired, they're really not a good fit, they're struggling to perform, maybe they're struggling to get along with colleagues? What does that process look like in a Teal organization?
Yeah, so in a Teal organization or at Baumier, we believe into a decision process by asking peers around ourselves. So sorry, I don't have the right expression in English, but yeah, it's decision process by solicitation. Actually, it means that at some point everybody is responsible, as we state. Everybody is responsible for the company. Everybody is responsible for the growth of the company. So if at some point someone in the team is experiencing something that is painful, something that is not right, something that is bad, either on a product, on a finance, HR, and whatever, he has the power to raise the hand and say, hey, team, this is not right. We should do this differently. To your example, if at some point there is someone who was having a kind of toxic behavior, then we're going to talk about that and we're going to identify that. So few probably is going to start by having those two individuals who are experiencing some toxic behavior. So they're going to talk to each other and say, you know what, when I'm doing that, when you do this, it is painful for me because of that and that. And we try to implement the kind of the way where we talk to each other with a methodology that is, I don't know, again, if sorry, I'm not very good at the
No, you're okay.
technical term in the English. But actually, it's really about talking about myself being uncomfortable when you act this way. So this is not your fault. It's really about my feelings into this situation. And at the end of the day, we all need to grow into this ecosystem, right? So if at some point there is someone who is uncomfortable, we need to address this topic. And ideally, those topics raise very, very early in the process. So at the beginning, it is very, very small. It's like, you know what, just very something simple. Like we try to take care of the environment. Like when you get out of the room, please turn off the light. Just something like that. And it, something like that, we say it's a very, very small thing. And at some point, it can build up to something bigger. So we try to address the challenges at the very early beginning of where it gets raised. So it is just very small things. But instead of throwing this under the carpet, we try to address it instead of building something bigger. So it's the first element. And at some point, if it's starting to be a real conflict, we really encourage individuals to manage their conflict by themselves, and on and on. And if it doesn't work that way, then we organize a council around this conflict, and we try to take care of the confidentiality around that. It doesn't come to a kind of full company topics. It is between those two individuals, and it has to be solved. And we respect this fate. It can take a long time. And at some point, I mean, in the past, I had to take such a decision because I was the owner and I managed to build a team. And I had to, I don't know if fire is the right expression, but I had to thank people for joining Baumier and ask them to leave. And the way I did that is trying to build trust and say, at some point, we need to build trust together. And how can you build trust? And trust from Brené Brown experience and from Brené Brown braiding acronym. I don't know if you heard about that, but I encourage you to listen to that. It is very structured and helpful. So we need to score a few elements around. So braving is boundaries, reliability, accountability, being bold, respecting the confidentiality, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. So we have a map of things that we can rank and say, okay, you're good at boundaries, you are catastrophic at reliability. And for my example, it was really that, like, man, you are catastrophic at reliability. You don't deliver what you said you're gonna do. So this is a problem. And so at some point you need to fix that. Otherwise the Baumier ecosystem doesn't grow. It's like putting a massive asphalt space in the forest. Like everything around the asphalt is dying, right? So we need to remove this asphalt. So at some point, so this is how the process is going. And at some point, it is sad that we experiment some time where people has to leave the organization. And, to me, this is why I used to say a Teal organization, it's not a family, right? A family, you cannot break the blood connection, right? This is just impossible. This is driven by nature. In the Teal organization, I mean, in the Teal organization, it's just ecosystem where you can come in and you can leave to serve the ecosystem.
I love that. And for our own business, I feel the same way. I don't think it's meant this way, but I think it has the potential to be really toxic for if you describe your company as part of a family. Because yeah, I mean, to your
Yeah.
point, if you're part of a family and you get kicked out of the family, that's a lot more catastrophic. I love the analogy of describing a company as a high performing sports team. That hey, yes,
Yeah,
there's a lot of
I'm coming actually from rowing, as I said. And in
absolutely.
rowing, you have the 8 rower, which is the longest boat in rowing. And to perform in 8 and in rowing, you need to have 8 guys plus the cox guy, which means 9 guys that are extremely focusing on the well-being on the boat itself. Because if you are the strongest, you cannot track all the boat by yourself, and so you're gonna always go at the fastest speed of the slowest, actually, which is very interesting. So if you are the biggest and the faster, and if you just work for yourself, it won't work. So it's better if you remove the faster for having someone who is more responsibility from the entire organization, which is the boat itself, and it can be faster. It's the same. And in a boat, you can jump in and jump out. The main focus is to make sure that the boat, in this case, is chasing for the gold medal in the Olympics, if this is the mission. So this is it. And at some point, you have some phase of your life where you are strong enough to be part of the boat, and you need to be vulnerable enough to say, probably I'm not here to help and grow this anymore. So it's good for me to live, and it's good for everybody to live.
So with the Teal organization, I'm curious about larger, I'm going to broadly say larger company direction decisions. And I think that could be, I think we could probably break that into a couple categories, but some of the things that come to mind would be, let's say the company is considering, in your case, let's say you're considering rolling out a brand new cycle, unlike anything that you have on the market, would be one. Two would be, let's say that there is a really big marketing opportunity that you're considering investing in. Hypothetical might be there's an opportunity for you to be the top sponsor for the Tour de France, let's say, but it's going to be a massive investment for the business. With really large decisions like that, how does that work at Baumier, and how does that work in a Teal organization?
It is so theoretically, it is supposed to be decision made by who is bringing the opportunity to the table. So it can be, let's say, Ben, who is in the team leading marketing and sales and marketing, who can bring this opportunity to go to the Tour de France and sponsor, I don't know, the next big team. At the end of the day, he gonna take the decisions to bring Baumier into this journey. He has to respect the process. It means that he needs to listen carefully about the peers who might be impacted by the decision. And the peers don't have any authority to stop him from doing this, that he has to listen to them carefully. And if the peers doesn't have any major obstruction, then this is his own decisions. And so, for example, into this case, the peer is going to be finance, going to be production, because assuming that for a UCI World Series team, you need to produce tons of bikes and wheels and on and on. So you have these capabilities. It's going to be, so there are different around the table that needs to be involved into this discussion. And at the end of the day, Ben, into this example, can take the decisions. And what we try to honor here is the fact that Ben has to listen to his guts feeling. And the guts feeling is something extremely important in our humanity. We are here since the last 5,000 years because of our guts feeling. Because when we feel that there is a lion somewhere in the savannah, we need to run, right? But we probably didn't see it. So the gut feeling is extremely important. But today in our corporation, we don't listen to this anymore. And that's a shame, because it's a very powerful intelligence that nature is teaching us to listen to it. So it's really part of something that we want to honor and we want to bring back to the table. Another example is that, okay, we manufacture rims here, and Frank at the production can say, hey guys, we need a $500,000 robot to manufacture rims better, and on and on. It's the same. You're going to take the lead on these decisions. You're going to study it. You're going to bring information to the team. But the team and myself, I refuse to take the control or the ownership or the power of saying yes or no. It should not be my decisions. And like on my side, I am the owner of the culture and our Teal Organization journey. So I bring everybody to, for example, to climb a mountain in the winter time because we need to get exposed to ourselves. We need to expose ourselves to nature to understand what nature is teaching us. So it means that the company is been stopped, for example, for a week, and we're gonna get together. We're gonna learn. And so this is a kind of other decision that has an impact on the company. And yeah, so this is how we manage decisions. And at the end of the day, if you have real conflict, and by real conflict I mean if peers around the table say, no, it doesn't work, and I mean it doesn't work not because his ego tell him, no, it doesn't work because I'm gonna lose something in this process. No. It's not an ego decision. It's a very important element from Baumier's perspective. For example, we don't have money for doing this, or we don't have time for this. So it's a true conflict. Then we manage conflict discussions like having toxic environment. So we go down to some kind of conflicts management process, and we try to solve it.
So I'm curious, having built Baumier as a Teal organization, are there any downsides to a Teal organization that you've found really difficult to either adhere to, or you've decided, let's maybe disregard this element because we don't agree with that being in the best interest of our organization?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Actually, it's not a recipe, right? It's not you have to do A, B, C, D, equal it's gonna work for sure. It's not a recipe. It's really something that you need to feel. It's really something that you need to put together, try and error and fail and on and on. So it's really a process. It's a true journey. It's a true adventurous journey. And I would say probably the two big challenge I face is, first of all, it's not something that we understand easily. When I talk about self-management, about freedom, everybody say, wow, it's good. I'm going to do whatever I want. I take all the vacation I want because this is true, in fact. But they don't understand the responsibility behind, and they don't understand the true responsibility about making Baumier growing first before themselves. This is the deal. You have full freedom. You can do whatever you want, but you have to serve Baumier first. So this is very, very challenging. And usually we are, unfortunately, I would say, very, very well trained or cultural wired by the corporate world, where you enter into the company, you are no longer this responsible adult. You are suddenly a kid because your boss is telling you to do whatever he wants you to do. If you have to buy something, you don't have the right to buy something. And so when you put your corporate suit, you become a kid driven by your father. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm really amazed by how many individuals I met that have shiny eyes when you talk about freedoms, but when it's time to take responsibility, then you lose them. It's too hard. It's too hard for them. And so, yeah, I would say probably this is the massive challenge, because people have some trouble to really understand what it means behind. It's a constant effort to, step on your ego, be vulnerable, truly vulnerable, because as an adult, you are vulnerable, right? You have your good days, you have your bad days, you can be uncertain. And myself is the first, and I don't know what I don't know. And there is a lot of things that I don't know. And so this is why the team is supposed to work on this. I would say, yeah, those are the two main challenges. And after that, it's about time. It's an organic growth. And I strongly believe in nature. And so I know for sure that at the end of this process, it's gonna shine bright. But I don't know how long it's gonna take.
Hey, listeners, if you're struggling to profitably acquire new customers, we're here to help. Pat from Intergrowth here. We've been helping e-commerce brands like Brevity, Cierto Tequila, Bella Bridesmaids, and more since 2016 to profitably scale their customer base. If you're interested in learning more, go to intergrowth.com/CGS, and you can schedule a complimentary consultation with me. Once again, that's intergrowth.com/CGS. Benjamin, I love this. I know we're coming close to time. I want to pick your brain on going the VC route versus the bootstrapped route, though, before we wrap up today. So you've started one business that took on the VC approach of raising external funds and scaling from there. Baumier has been bootstrapped. At a very high level, I suspect it's more nuanced than just one or the other, but at a very high level, what are some of your key takeaways, let's say the pros and cons of going the VC route versus taking the bootstrap?
Yeah, so if I may, it's probably hard to say that Baumier has been bootstrapped because I am the investor of Baumier, and actually, thanks to the MobiWave adventure, we have a single investor, which is myself, and we are pretty, I would say, wealthy into this biking environment thanks to these adventures. I won't say that it's a full bootstrap company because we started with some money, where I consider that bootstrapping is really like you start with nothing, only your brain, your power, your energy, but no money, which is a little bit different. But, to me, based on the discussion we had around Teal Organization, around how can we get learnings from nature and on, it is hard to consider now how VC is working in a true wealthy environment, in a true well-being environment. And of course, I hear the folks say, okay, but you are coming from the VC, so this is bullshit because you make your own money, and now you can play the game and say, okay, you have your own money and you can play this kind of richy game, but when we were at MobiWave, of course we needed money, but the chase was not to gain money. The chase was really, how can we make this journey as inspiring as possible, as crazy as possible, because we were really revolutionizing the payment landscape. And raising money has been extremely hard, and actually for me, because I was the CEO of the organization, and I run literally around the world for 10 years to raise money, and it was extremely painful, extremely hard. And as an entrepreneur who is asking yourself the question, like, should I go VC route or bootstrapping? It's hard to respond, actually. You have to believe into your journey. You have to define what is the true root cause in your heart, in the deepest feeling of your heart. And if the response is money, just for money, yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work. It has to be something different. It has to be something more, inside emotional intelligence, or something that is deeply rooted into yourself. And for me, it was really like, I love adventurous journey. I love to create something that is different. And I strongly believe into you create value into the difference, into making something different. So when everybody is going into that way, I used to stop on myself and look on the other side and say, probably I'm going to go this way. And this way, I'm going to be probably myself, throwing the earth to make my own way, but it's going to be so much fun. And this is something that drives me, and it doesn't drain me, So this is where I managed to survive into those 10 years of hectic journey. It's a very long discussion around VC versus bootstrapping. There are a lot of good things in a VC route, because those guys, they know how to structure companies. They help you to structure the companies. They help you to make some things internally that you probably would have not been doing if you were just by yourself. And this is very helpful, because the sooner you put this in place, the sooner the company is going to be more structured. And so it is more robust and solid. And on the other side, unfortunately, the VC route is driven by capitalism, by the I would say, the bad face, the dark face of the capitalism, which is just making money for the shareholders, which is very unfortunate in my see, because I do believe now that value are created by the doers, by the team, by the people who are actually doing things. And so they should first take the sense of value and wellness before the shareholders. To me, shareholders, investors bringing money in, it's just gas in the tank. But if you have a full tank and you don't have engine, then the car won't work, right? So it's good, it's needed, but to me, this is where we as a society, as a humanity, we need to find the right balance between capitalism, finance, and doers. And we need to bring this. Today, it's really finance getting all the advantage, and doers actually get really at some point unfairly recognized. We need to bring back some balance and say, okay, shareholders, finance need to have their own stake. Indeed, yes, because they have an important role into the ecosystem. They feed the ecosystem. So it's the kind of the water coming from the sky in this tropical forest. But this is not just that,
Amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's a very hard and complex topic, but you have to understand that yeah, it's hard to it's a complex topic.
Oh, of course, of course. Benjamin, this has been amazing. For, let's say, listeners who either one, want to connect with you, or two, want to learn more about Baumier, one, where can they connect with you online? Two, where can they go to learn more about Baumier? And if they're so inclined to buy a really nice new cycle?
Yeah, so of course, www.baumier.com, BAUMIER.com is our website. We share about our stories, we share about our product. So please feel free to look at that. Feel free to reach me on LinkedIn. It's going to be, I'm always happy. There is something that I love about my journey and my experience. I had the chance to experiment a lot of things, and I had a lot of help from a lot of people. I am in a position now that I'm very pleased to help and to share my story pretty, transparently. And again, I don't know what I don't know. There are probably something that I didn't experience, and there are probably some people who might react to my sense, to my words. But I'm here to help. I'm here to share whatever I discover. It's not only truth. It's not an obligation. It's just one experience. And I really encourage individuals to connect their dots into their own life, probably based on one experience. My experience is one of millions of experience. And yeah, so happy to connect, happy to share more, and happy to help.
Amazing. Listeners, check out the show notes. We'll have links to Benjamin's LinkedIn. We'll have links to the Baumier website, and we'll also include a link to the Teal Organization book that he referenced as well. Once again, listeners, this is Benjamin du Haÿs, the founder over at Baumier. Benjamin, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.